The American President Joe Biden has arrived in South Korea. He's arrived at the Osan Air Base in South Korea. This, of course, is a big and a very important visit by President Biden onto the Korean Peninsula. This is his first presidential trip to Asia, and the visit is under the shadow of the Ukraine war that is underway, and also the possibility that North Korea could, of course, carry out a nuclear test while Biden is, of course, in South Korea. This, remember, is a very crucial and an important visit by the American president. He's expected to step out of his plane. He's just landed there. The plane has just landed there. And there are several issues that, of course, are on the agenda. There are bilateral meetings. And this of course, is a visit where Biden will be pushing forth with America's vision for what is to happen in trying to resolve the Korean crisis. Now, there is a lot of speculation that North Korea could potentially conduct either a missile strike or perhaps even a nuclear test on the occasion of the fact that Biden is on the Korean Peninsula. So the American president has arrived in South Korea. His plane has just touched down at the Osan Air Base in the country. And there are worries that North Korea could potentially carry out either a missile test or even perhaps a nuclear test at the time that Joe Biden will be in South Korea. This is a visit to reaffirm a key alliance at a very uncertain moment in East Asia. Now, the war in Ukraine is, of course, one of the biggest things that has preoccupied the American president. And the American president, while he will be in Korea, is also expected to sign on the bill that was passed by the Senate that has now granted $40 billion in terms of military and humanitarian assistance to the people in Ukraine. And also remember, this is coming at a time when tensions on the Korean Peninsula are also on the rise. Since the beginning of this year, North Korea has been on a missile testing spree. In the last 5.5 months, North Korea has tested missiles a total of 15 times. And there is a lot of speculation that North Korea could resort to further provocation by either conducting a missile test or perhaps even a nuclear test at the time when Joe Biden is in South Korea. Now, the Air Force One plane has touched down at the Osan Air Base, an American military installation just outside the capital, Seoul. And there, the American president getting down from the plane after this pretty long journey from Washington. Immediately after his arrival, Biden is, of course, planning to visit a Samsung semiconductor factory to emphasize the importance of strengthening American supply chains, which have been very reliant on Chinese materials so far. Now, the stakes of this big trip of Joe Biden are pretty high, especially considering the fact that there are multiple crises that Joe Biden, in fact, is confronted with. The biggest of them is, of course, the war that is presently underway in Ukraine. Joe Biden, of course, is expected to sign the bill, the $40 billion military and humanitarian assistance bill to Ukraine, while he is in the Korean Peninsula. Remember, the bill was just passed by the Senate. Joe Biden is being received by the delegation in South Korea. He's landed at the Osan Air Base just outside the capital city of Seoul. The stakes, of course, could not have been higher. And while there is a war that is underway in Ukraine, there's also a crisis that is brewing in the Korean Peninsula. North Korea has been pretty belligerent. It has been testing one missile after another. And there is speculation, and there is a possibility that North Korea may resort to further provocation at a time when Joe Biden is in South Korea. Now, according to assessments that have been put forth by the US intelligence, it is being said that North Korea could be getting ready to fuel an intercontinental ballistic missile, one of the key final stages in preparing for a test launch. And this is what the American intelligence has been saying, that the possibility of a missile launched by the North Koreans is really high because of the satellite imagery of fueling of a missile that has in fact been seen Once a missile is fueled, then launch usually comes in pretty quickly due to the risk of leaving a missile full of thousands of pounds of fuel on a launcher. Now, Biden and his aides have, of course, prepared contingencies should Pyongyang launch any kind of a long-range missile or conduct a seventh underground nuclear test. As the US officials have warned, American allies officials have also briefed their allies on the various possibilities should a test be conducted by the North Koreans. So remember, this is a visit where Joe Biden is, of course, in the Korean Peninsula. He's here to strengthen the bilateral relationship that he, of course, has with the South Koreans. South Korea happens to be one of the closest allies of the Americans, but things are not all completely as normal as one would seem because of the belligerence that has been exhibited by North Korea over the course of the last several months, where from the beginning of this year, as a stated objective, North Korea has been carrying out one missile test after another. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.